Do you know what Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, and Jeff Bezos all have in common? Well, they've each mastered 10 high-value skills that has allowed them to become highly effective CEOs. And in this video, you're going to discover what those 10 high-value skills are and how you can develop them yourself. So whether you want to become CEO or improve your leadership skills or even increase your revenue and income, these 10 high-value skills are going to help you take your life and business to the next level. But I will warn you, the last one is the most important. If you truly want to be successful, you can't afford not to have the skill. So make sure you watch this video all the way to the end. If you're new here though, my name is Byron Morrison. I'm the author of Think Like a CEO, and on this channel I put out video on mindset, leadership, and becoming more effective in your role. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss future videos. Skill number one is staying within your realm of genius. Every week I speak to founders and CEOs who, despite being incredibly busy, aren't actually getting much done. Not much of value anyway. Instead, most of their days are spent putting out fires, solving other people's problems, or working on tasks that are simply not a good use of their time. And this is a huge issue because at the end of the day, everything you take on has a cost. Every hour you spend in one thing is an hour that could be spent on something else. And that's why if you want to take your life and business to the next level, you need to become hyper-focused on where you're actually spending your time. Mark Zuckerberg talks about how one question he asks himself each day is, am I doing the most important things that I could be doing? And this level of insight and awareness is so important because if you're not clear on your priorities and what you're committing to, that's when you risk focusing on things that aren't a good use of your time. That's why in order to do this yourself, there's two things that you need to do. Firstly, you need to figure out what is your zone of genius, as in where does your time have the greatest impact? What is it that if you put more of your energy into these tasks, that's going to get you to where you want to be? The second thing you need to do is get really clear on what you're trying to achieve. Whether you want to figure this out based on 30, 60, or 90-day targets, you need to know the outcome in mind, because then whenever you're presented with new tasks or ideas or opportunities, you can look at them through the lens of, does this fall into my zone of genius? Is this going to get me closer to where I want to be? If the answer is no, then you know it's something that's going to be a distraction and that you shouldn't be taking on. One of my favorite strategies to use here as well is to reverse engineer the week. On a Monday, sit down and really think ahead to 5 p.m. Friday and ask yourself, knowing where I want to be in 30, 60, or 90 days, what do I need to move forward this week for it to be a success? That's going to help you figure out your priorities and what you need to get done so that you can then make better use of your time. Knowing your realm of genius, though, is not enough. If you actually want to maximize your time, then an essential skill that you need to develop is effective delegation. Richard Branson talks about how if you want to grow as an entrepreneur, you have to learn to delegate. And this is because great businesses aren't built by one person. Instead, it's a team of people collectively coming together, working towards a vision and goal. And that's why if you want to be a highly effective CEO, one of the skills you have to develop is the ability to delegate and empower your team. I get it though, delegation is scary and it's easy to fall into a trap where you worry that people are going to make mistakes, they're not going to get it right, that people can't do it as well as you. And this is why it's easy to convince yourself that you should just take these tasks on yourself. But going back to skill number one though, if you keep allowing yourself to get pulled into low leverage tasks, that's going to come at the expense of your growth. What so many leaders get wrong when it comes to delegation though, is they don't set their team up for success. They just assume that they know what to do. And this is why mistakes get made or problems occur that could be completely avoided. That's why if you want to do this properly, you need to recognize that people can't read your mind. Just because something makes sense to you doesn't mean that it makes sense to everyone else. That's why instead of just handing it off, you need to really figure out what is the outcome that you want. What information and context do you have that other people don't? Figure out what you would need to communicate to really set someone up for success. Then from there, set expectations, talk someone through it, answer any questions, and ensure that everyone's on the same page before moving on. In order for delegation to actually work though, you have to develop skill number 3, and that is the ability to keep people accountable. So many of the first-time CEOs I work with want to be the leader that people can turn to, and while their intentions may be admirable and in the right place, often what it does is create a culture where people underperform and don't follow through. So often I have conversations with CEOs who delegate a task and then get frustrated that it doesn't get done. And often the reason people don't follow through is because they aren't holding them accountable. Someone who was ruthless with this was Steve Jobs. If you look at the history of Apple, one of the big contributing factors to their success was his ability to build high-performing teams. And this is because he had clear expectations and accountability where with every task or project, someone was held responsible for its failure or success. Now, his approach, though, was no doubt questionable. And I'm definitely not saying that if you want to be an effective CEO or leader, you need to scream and shout and put a fear in people that at any moment they could be fired. But there is a big lesson here in actually holding people to what they need to do, because a lot of leaders fear implementing accountability. And what they're overlooking is that your high achievers and high performers absolutely thrive in this environment. It's what brings out their best. And that's why you just need to be at peace with the fact that being firm and holding people accountable doesn't have to mean that you're not a good or nice person. It just comes down to your approach, how you communicate it, and what you put in place. Skill number 4 is creating an environment where you can get your best ideas, because one of the problems with running a company is it's easy to get stuck in the trenches where every single day is just firefighting, dealing with challenges, and trying to get stuff done. The problem is when you're in that reactive state, though, there's no way you can think clearly, process problems, or handle challenges as your best self. And it's the same as if you ever want to do something where you need to be creative and you sit down to work on it, but instead of being able to innovate, you go completely blank. That's because you're in the wrong environment to get these things done. But then you go and you have a shower and all of your best ideas appear out of nowhere. This isn't by accident, because often in order to really think clearly and process problems, you need to step away and disconnect. This is why Jeff Bezos talks about how one of his non-negotiables is every single day he goes for a walk. He takes time just to slow down, to process, to think about challenges and problems. It's in this time that he gains clarity on what he should be doing. And that's why if you really want to think bigger, you need to schedule time every single day just to allow yourself to think. A lot of the time we have resistance to this because we feel guilty or like we're wasting time and not being productive, when in reality, this can be one of the most important things you do with your day. So really structure that time in for you to step away, get off your phone, don't go on social media, and really just process and think about what you're doing and why. Skill number 5 is one of the most important, and that's developing the mindset to focus on solutions, not problems. Because for a lot of people, what happens when something goes wrong is they fixate on the past. All of their focus goes into what went wrong, the mistakes that were made, blaming other people, or their response is to dwell on it or beat themselves up. The thing is, though, you can't change the past. What's done is done, and all focusing on it is doing is wasting time and energy on something that is out of your control. What you can control, though, is how you choose to respond. And that's why it's so important to start developing the mindset when something goes wrong or a mistake is made. You always shift your focus to the present or the future and how you need to move forward. Your focus always needs to be on what you need to do about this. By doing so, you can then figure out the actions that will allow you to resolve these issues. And then you can go back and you can look at, why did this happen? What are the lessons you need to learn? How do you avoid it the next time? But again, that's always with a future focused mindset, not getting caught up in things that are out of your control. That takes us perfectly to skill number 6, which is having the awareness and the humility to recognize when you need to grow and develop. Because one of the biggest reasons why people get stuck is because of the Dunning-Kruger effect. They massively overestimate their abilities, and because of it, they aren't pushing themselves to learn and grow. Warren Buffett talks about how one of the greatest risks is not knowing what you're doing. And this is why highly effective CEOs are always looking for ways to develop and improve themselves. Even if they're an expert in their space, they recognize that they don't know everything. The world is always changing. There's new ideas and developments and innovations. And because of that, failing to keep up is how they get left behind. It's also why they recognize the importance of surrounding themselves with the right support, because they know they need people around them who challenge their ideas, who bring in new perspectives, who push them to become their best. And that's why if you want to get to the next level, you always need to focus on developing your skills and honing your craft so that you can become the best version of you. And this is why it's so important to set aside time to read books, to get coached, to stay up to date with what's going on in your industry, because these insights are how you're going to gain an edge and constantly improve. Now, the fact that you're watching this video shows me that you're already aware of how important this is. So I'd love to know in the comments below, what are you working on right now to improve yourself? What books are you reading, or what courses are you doing? Share it below, because it may just help someone else on their journey to becoming the best version of themselves. Skill number 7 is having the ability to view failure as an opportunity to learn and grow. The reality is, in life and business, failure is inevitable. In many ways, you're going to fail far more than you're going to succeed. And the thought of this alone for a lot of people is paralyzing. That fear of failure stops them from even getting started. At the end of the day, though, it's when you fail that you figure out how to improve. You get lessons for the future. You see new paths and opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't have found. And this is why it's so important that you learn to embrace failure as part of the process. Yes, I know it hurts and it's disheartening when things don't go according to plan, but in many ways, failure is just a stepping stone that gets you one step closer towards where you want to be. Mark Cuban also talks about how if you're not failing, you're not innovating enough. And that's a sign that you're not making the right decisions or putting yourself out there to really grow and develop. And this is why it's so important to recognize that failure is only a bad thing if you don't learn from it and if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again. When you learn to embrace that and you get the lessons, though, that's how you're going to set yourself up to go the next level of success. Skill number 8 is one of the most important, and this is also one of the things that so few people do, and that is having the ability to reflect and learn from the past. Bob Parsons, founder of GoDaddy, talks about how anything that is measured and watched improves. And if you want to develop yourself, you have to treat it in exactly the same way. This is why when I'm working with my private clients, I track the entire journey, everything from how they deal with tough conversations to how they manage and structure their time, the challenges that come up that throw them off their game. I get them to reflect on it every single day, because then we take some time each week to break it down. We look at what they did or didn't do, what they could have done better, what they need to learn from it. This is how we build their confidence and intuition. And the way I always frame it for them is it's a lot like an elite athlete going back and watching old game footage. That's how they figure out how to improve and get an edge. And this is why if you want to become the best version of yourself, you have to treat it in exactly the same way. The way to do this yourself is to set aside a few minutes each day to reflect on what you did. Really think about what went right, what could have gone better, what would allow you to feel more in control. Reflecting on what you did is your greatest opportunity for growth, because this is how you're going to build your confidence and intuition, and it's how you're going to better navigate similar challenges in the future. Skill number 9 is one of the most important, but also one of the hardest to get right. And that is developing the ability to say no and set boundaries. With so many of the CEOs I speak to and work with, one of the biggest disruptors to their days and success is themselves. It's their people-pleasing tendencies where they say yes far too much and get pulled into things they shouldn't. You'd be amazed how many times I have conversations where someone has a clear plan and intention for what they need to get done. Then they drop everything and get pulled into solving other people's problems. And I get it. You want to be the boss that people can rely on. You want to always build people up around you and help everyone else. But you have to recognize when that's coming at the expense of what you need to get done, because I know you feel guilty and like you're selfish prioritizing what you need to do. And that's why you need to reframe it in your mind and remind yourself that your team, your family, your customers, the people you are trying to help, all of them are relying on you to move these projects forward. And that's why in many ways, it's not selfish to say no, it's selfish to say yes and get pulled into everything else. And this is why you need to become more defensive with your time. Alex Hormozy talks about it and how you're going to say no either way. You're either going to say no to the person wanting something from you, or you're going to say no to the things you need to get done. And that's why if you want to be hyper successful, you need to become more defensive with your time. That means knowing when to set boundaries, when to push back, and when to start doing things on your agenda, not on the agenda of other people. Get this right, and you'll be able to balance moving forward the things you need to do with everything else that needs your attention. And finally, skill number 10, which is probably the most important skill of all, and that is making decisions based on where you want to get to, not on where you are. You see, the way that most people live their life is they're always making choices based on what they want in the moment, that comfort, that pleasure, that in the now satisfaction, or avoiding pain. What they're overlooking, though, is they're essentially picking what they want now at the expense of what they want most. For anything you want to achieve, though, it's going to require sacrifice and going through discomfort and giving up on short-term gratification to get you to where you want to be. Someone who's a great example of this is Elon Musk. If you look back through his career, there's so many times where he's torn apart in the media. People say he's being reckless, he's making stupid decisions. And then a year later, it's like, oh my God, he's a genius. Look at this incredible thing he achieved. The reason why he's able to do that is he thinks 5 steps ahead. He's willing to make that short-term loss or go through the challenges and the criticism because he knows the actions he's trying to take are going to get him to where he wants to be. This is why if you want to be successful, you have to develop the ability to make decisions based on the future you're trying to create. That doesn't mean being reckless, but it does mean making calculated decisions based on the information and the outcomes that you're striving towards. I actually have a video going through the entire decision-making framework that I use with myself and my private clients, and this is something that you can use whether it's in big life or business decisions or just for everyday actions to help you eliminate procrastination and get yourself to follow through. So I'll link that above, and I'll also put it in the description of this video. So there you have it, 10 high value skills that effective CEOs master that allows them to show up as the leader their business needs. I'm curious, which of these 10 skills have stood out for you the most, and which of them do you need to focus on going forward to allow you to take control of the life that you want? Share your thoughts and comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe so that you don't miss future videos on mindset, leadership, and becoming the best version of yourself. I've been Byron Morrison. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.